Today, I'd like to continue our journey through the Hebrew Scriptures as we take a look at the book of Judges, which is a follow-up to the book of Joshua. You'll find that the book of Joshua presents kind of an idealized picture of the conquest of the Promised Land. After Moses leads the people to the brink of the Promised Land by the River Jordan, Joshua leads them in. And you get the impression from Joshua that there were some battles and there's some difficulties, but basically the people kind of settled in the land and the different tribes took over different areas and God was with the people and things flowed fairly smoothly. When you look, though, at the book of Judges, you get, I think, a more realistic picture that the different tribes really had to fight for different territories. They didn't quite go as smoothly as the book of Joshua might indicate. There were a lot of troubles, a lot of back and forth, and there was not really a complete conquest. There was more or less a coexistence with the different Canaanites. The complete conquest more or less comes with the reigns of David and Solomon, and then quickly after Solomon, the kingdom is divided. So a more accurate picture really is found, I think, in the book of Judges, where there's much more of a struggle on the part of the people. And these different leaders, very charismatic leaders, who try to kind of unify certain tribes in certain areas and battle for land and territory. They raised up here during this time period, so it's an time period really between Joshua and the conquest of the Promised Land and the establishment of the kingdom. So this in-between period is really a period of different leaders waging different battles, and there's a back and forth, and the Canaanites are never really completely conquered. Different tribes within Canaan retain certain territories, and that's really, I think, a more accurate picture of what was going on. So Judges in chapter 1 starts off with the tribe of Judah, and the tribe of Judah is stepping up their attack on the Canaanites after the death of Joshua. So you might ask, after the death of Joshua, well, it seemed like the tribe of Judah was pretty well established. Why would they have to step up their attack? Well, really because they weren't that well established. They were in certain areas, but in other areas there were the Canaanites. And it was always to fight for the better land, and the better land was the land that had access to water and the land where you could raise decent crops. So that was the land that was always the precious land, that was the back and forth in terms of the Canaanites certainly wanted that land, the different tribes wanted that land, and they're really jockeying for position on the better land. So they fight against Aben-Bezek at the town of Bezek. He fled, but they were able to catch up with him, and they cut off his thumbs and his big toes. You might say, well, that's kind of cruel. Why would they cut off his thumbs and his big toes? This punishment meant that he could no longer bear arms, so that he was incapacitated in terms of fighting against them. So that would have been the usual punishment when you caught a leader. You wanted to make sure that he wasn't able to, after a while, get his forces back again and then fight against you, and this back and forth. So that was the punishment. And when that happened to Adonibzek, he was like, well, I understand because that's what I've done. So he wasn't shocked that this was happening. He was like, oh yeah, this is kind of the normal thing. And he dies, Adonibzek dies in Jerusalem. So the Judaites had captured Jerusalem. However, this seems to be an error, as Jerusalem was captured by David at a much later date. So a lot of times when something is attributed in the book of Judges, you wonder historically whether or not it actually happened, or this is a later writer attributing it to the tribe of Judah, which of course was the tribe of David, and David eventually conquered it. So they were kind of paving the way for David to take control of Jerusalem. Caleb then is featured in chapter 1, and he gave his daughter Aksha in marriage to Othniel, because Othniel had captured the city of Kiriath Sefer. So Caleb gives Aksha additional land, and on that land was pools of water, as she had requested. So again, the importance of water. So Aksha was getting married, and she was given a certain amount of land. And then she goes to Dad and says, Dad, I could really use this other land as well. So this was kind of considered a dowry that a father would give along with the daughter in marriage, would try to give maybe some livestock, portion of land, some a monetary offering, something of that nature, as a sign of his love for his daughter and a sign of wishing for the marriage. So the marriage would kind of start with some solid financial foundation. The tribe of Judah was then assisted by the tribe of Simeon, and they defeated the Canaanites who dwelt in Zephath. And the tribe of Simeon was eventually assimilated into the tribe of Judah. So we see that this tribe kind of loses their sense of numbers and sense of conquest and sense of power. They dwindle, the tribe of Simeon, and eventually they're completely absorbed into the tribe of Judah. But we see them here in the beginning of Judges in chapter 1, kind of working with the tribe of Judah, but later on they become completely one with the tribe of Judah, which becomes, of course, the dominant tribe in the south eventually. Judah also gained possession of the mountain country, but not other areas on the plain. And the writer in Judges says, well, they couldn't really get those areas on the plain because they didn't have any iron chariots. So those with the iron chariots were controlling it. They didn't really have the weaponry. They weren't sophisticated enough in their ability to fight the superior force. So they realized that, and we'll say, okay, we're going to stay here, and we'll be more in the mountains. The mountains, of course, not the ideal area. You want to raise crops, very difficult. Whereas the plain was the desired area. Everybody wanted to be part of the plain. It was the area where you can raise a lot of crops. There was more access to water. This was the prime land that you wanted. So we'll see eventually how this works out as we continue our journey through the book of Judges.